Welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending our LEAD conference. This is the last conference in our three-part Hope Conference series, and our themes today are awakening our communities, sustaining change, and exploring future possibilities. My name is Helena Kamika, and I'm the president of Abuse Hurts, and I'm honored to be welcoming you to our conference today. Before we go to the opening remarks, Abuse Hurts would first like to acknowledge the land on which our building is housed, and where our employees, volunteers, and members of the public gather. The land is the traditional territory of the Mississaugas, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Wendake-Mionwencio. We are guests on this land, and it is our shared responsibility to respect, honor, and sustain the land. We acknowledge this land out of respect for the Indigenous nations who have cared for Turtle Island, also called North America. As we are all attending today from different regions, we encourage you to learn about the lands on which you reside to develop a deeper understanding of the Indigenous nations in your area. You can do this by visiting the lobby and researching the map link located in the land acknowledgement announcement. We would also like to thank the project funder, Women and Gender Equality Canada, who has made this conference series possible. And now please join me in welcoming our first speaker of the day, Joanna Baker from WAGE, who will share some opening remarks. Joanna Baker has been the Senior Director General responsible for the Programs and Regional Operations Branch at Women and Gender Equality Canada since August 2020. Under her leadership, her teams address systemic barriers to gender equality and support the capacity and sustainability of women's and equality-seeking organizations through client-centered and results-focused delivery of departmental grants and contributions programs. Prior to joining WAGE, Joanna was the Director General of Business Development and Partnerships at the Canadian Intellectual Property Office, where she focused on building partnerships with key stakeholders in the innovation landscape and enhancing awareness of the intellectual property for small and medium-sized enterprises. She has over 20 years of experience working in various departments in the Canadian federal government, including Public Works and Government Services Canada, Natural Resources Canada, Social Development Canada, and Employment and Social Development Canada, Service Canada, focused on marketing, communications, service delivery policy, operations, and program delivery. Welcome, Joanna.
Thank you so much. It's really, really lovely to be here. And it's a real pleasure to be sharing this virtual stage with all of you today. It is true, my name is Joanna Baker. I am that DG responsible for the programs branch at WAGE, and it is an absolute distinct pleasure to be here today. I too would like to begin by acknowledging that I'm currently working in Chelsea, Quebec, on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation, which has been here since time immemorial. I recognize the Algonquins are the traditional custodians and defenders of the Ottawa River watershed and its tributaries, Miigwech. This morning, I truly am honored to be here to set the stage for what I'm sure will be a remarkable conference. It gives me personally great hope to know that you, as experts, community partners, and survivors, are coming together to invest your time and energy in dialogue, community building, and sharing in order to influence and lead the action that is so critically important as we all work to rebuild our resilience and strength after some very tough times. You can imagine that being here today also feels very synergistic for me. And that is because the work happening here at this conference and throughout the life cycle of the Canadian Centre for Abuse Awareness's project, Breaking Silence and Building Communities, ties so well into the mandate of Women and Gender Equality Canada, which is to advance gender equality with respect to sex, orientation, gender identity or expression through the inclusion of people of all genders in Canada's economic, social, and political life. And we do that in partnership with you. We work towards our mandate with key stakeholders, including civil society organizations, labor groups, the private sector, other orders of government, First Nations, Inuit and Métis peoples, and we actively promote the inclusion of all people in Canada's economic, social, and political life. But specifically and concretely, one of the critical ways that we achieve this mandate is to support projects that address systemic issues that vulnerable and underrepresented women face. Projects that encourage women and girls in leadership and decision-making roles, improving their economic security and prosperity, and working to end gender-based violence, to help build a Canada that is fair, equal, and equitable for everyone. One of such life-changing projects supported by WAGE is the Canadian Centre for Abuse Awareness's project, Breaking the Silence, Building Communities, which you no doubt know all about. This project is increasing knowledge and awareness regarding systemic issues that impact interpersonal and intimate partner violence in marginalized communities. It is improving equality and equity for early detection and prevention of these types of violence. It is making sure that people like you and I have space, time, and platforms to be together at this very conference, raising awareness, encouraging leadership, inspiring hope. This Hope Conference that you are all attending today is a perfect example of the essential work that the Canadian Centre for Abuse Awareness is doing to educate others so they too can support those at risk of intimate partner violence. WAGE envisions a Canada where women and people of all genders are equal in every way and can achieve their full potential. This will not be possible without the valuable contributions of organizations like yours, dialogues like you are about to have, the leadership you show day in and day out, the focus you put on breaking down barriers, and the personal commitment each and every one of you bring to your work every day. We all know that pervasive problems require unwavering commitment to solve. And I can tell you, I am deeply appreciative for the work you are doing as experts, community partners, and survivors to make our communities better, healthier, fairer, more equal places for all. I thank you. I thank the Canadian Centre for Abuse Awareness for inviting me, for kicking things off today, and for allowing me a moment to express my gratitude for all the critical, exhausting, and oh so very important work that you do for adult survivors in your community. I wish you all a great conference, and I ask that you let the hope it will no doubt inspire, remind you of the reasons you chose to be here today, reconnecting yourself to the sources of your inspiration. I also hope that it brings your cup to be filled so that you can lead your communities through the challenges and triumphs of the work you do with such incredible dedication every day. On behalf of the Government of Canada, I thank you for your work and I wish you an amazing conference today.
Thank you, Joanna. Thank you so much. We're very inspired ourselves by working together with you and doing these conferences. It has given us hope and encouragement. So I hope it has done that for everyone else that has been a part of the series so far. I wanted to mention now that we would also like to thank Seneca College for sponsoring this conference and in particular our morning keynote session. So before I introduce our keynote speaker, there are a couple of housekeeping items I want to mention. All of our sessions are being recorded and will be available for viewing for all registrants following the close of the conference by visiting the conference link. If you have questions today during sessions, you can enter your questions in the Q&A in the bottom of the broadcast screen. Now, I am pleased to introduce our morning keynote speaker, Teresa Kruze. Teresa Kruze is a media specialist, TV producer, best-selling author, and international speaker. She is well known for the 14 years she spent at TSN, the sports network, where she pioneered and broke new ground for future female sportscasters. She then switched to news and entertainment, working for many stations in Canada, including CTV, CP24, City TV, Yes TV, and 680 News. In addition to her broadcast work, Kruze is also a media strategist, a virtual event producer, and executive coach, working with corporate leaders, charities, and not-for-profit organizations. For over 25 years, she has volunteered with Abuse Hurts as a communications PR specialist, helping the charity refine its messaging and getting them national media exposure through numerous television, radio, and print interviews. Please join me in welcoming Teresa to our conference.
Good morning, everybody. I am so pleased to be here. It is wonderful to be with you all. It's been a long time coming. We've been discussing this for the longest time, and I wanted to know how best that I might to serve this audience. And we thought maybe we could talk about messaging, which is something that is extremely difficult to do. I'm going to share my slides and let's get this going. So I've titled what I'm talking about today as When the Message Matters. And I'm just wondering if I can get some confirmation. Helena, maybe you can just give me a thumbs up if you can see my full screen right now. Can you see my slides? Maybe Helena can't hear me.
Yes,
Yes,
we can.
wonderful, thank you. All right, coming from the world of television, I'm a real visual person, so I wanted to make sure that you get to see everything here today. So I have put together a little agenda for us. We're going to be talking about the messages that we send out into the world to explain what it is that we do and the stories that we need to tell. I also want to fill you in a little bit on media strategy, if I may, if it's something that interests you in getting out into the media. I'll tell you, the media can really help augment our messaging, and it can help us really get it out there, and they become these little media hits on the legacy media of television, radio, and print can actually turn into marketing superstars for us, because we can put them out on our websites, YouTube channels if we've got them, and of course, there's great gratification with them on the social media channels. So I'll be going through a little bit of media strategy. And also, if it is something that you're interested in doing, we'll be talking a little bit about getting your camera ready. So here we go. We're going to start off with what should be a fairly straightforward issue, but sometimes can really trip us up. And that's getting our message out there into the world about how best we can explain what it is that we do and how we serve our communities. And, you know, whether you're, an agency or you're a survivor, or I know that you've got quite an audience that's watching today. Maybe if you're not directly involved in perhaps messaging or media or whatever, and you're going, well, I'm not quite sure whether or not this session is for me. I wanted you to know that I put it together with elements that I think that might serve right across the board. Like if you were a first responder or a survivor, or you're an agency director, I hope that what I'm about to tell you will help you. Like even if you're going into presentations or you have to write reports, there's various elements about what I'm about to tell you that will hopefully serve you well. So the biggest thing is brevity when it comes to messaging. We have to be so clear, concise, and on messaging, because there's so many outside and external forces that are knocking us off of what it is that we're trying to say and do. And so that's why it's got to be concise. And I want to tell you about this lesson that I learned from CBC. I came out of school so long ago, full of vim and vigor, and I was going to go into broadcasting, and I was really excited. I wanted a job in television. I thought I'd be going into news right away, because back then sports just was not an option for women. So my very first job, I got an internship at CBC Calgary, because that's where I'm from. I'm from out west. And I got this job, and I was so excited. I mean, CBC is the big dog, I was going into CBC, and I remember it was very much a grunt job. Got coffee for a lot of people, made sure the newspapers were tidy. We had a clipping service. I had to make sure that everything was good there. So one day, the producer says, Teresa, we're going to let you write one story for the news anchor. And I went, oh boy, here's my big break. And they said, if it's good enough, Terry Gleekoff will be reading it on the air. And I'm so excited. So we were sitting in this pod of 4 desks. She throws all this paper at me. And so I'm looking through and I'm going through everything, because this was the day before computers. That's how long ago it was that I started. So I'm going through everything, and she's giving me, this is the focus. This is what we want from you. This is how long it should be. And then she stands up, because this is a big point. And she says, you've got to remember a key point. And she points her finger right at me, and she goes, right for a 12-year-old. And I said, you have got to be kidding me. I said, you need a degree in order to work here. How on earth is it that we're writing for 12-year-olds? She said, well, 12-year-olds are pretty sophisticated. And if you've got one in your home, you probably know that already. However, she said, it's just the model that we use, because we throw so much at the public within such a short period of time that the rate of retention, resonance, the fact that there's so much coming at them, that when we write for a 12-year-old, when we're very clear, when we don't use a lot of big words and fancy language and all the rest, the rate of engagement and resonance where people are actually going to get it, and it just implodes as far as what happens. So I took that message to heart and made it a guiding principle in everything that I did in my broadcast work. It also applies here in key messaging. So what are some of the key tips? So we want to be very clear. We want to be concise. We want to be focused in what it is that we're trying to tell people. And that's the big question. You know, when we're sitting there with that big, huge white page of a Word document that's staring us in the face, we have to say, what are we trying to tell somebody? That's the question you have to ask. It almost turns into a workshop, because the only way that you're going to really drill down to the core meaning of what it is that you do, what it is that you have to say, you have to work on it with others. You have to use those simple words, and you have to be ruthless when editing your copy. Key messages are emotional. They're very deliberate and thoughtful. You have to be clear, you have to be simple, and you have to be consistent. So here's some helpful hints. Use that easy to understand language that really states your mission, or really states your story. Or if you're someone that's writing a report, what is it that you have to tell somebody? And how do you make it simple? Avoid technical terms wherever possible. Identify the most important information that people need to know. And I'll be going through this with you. You don't want to overwhelm them with information that'll take away from your core messaging. You want to use compelling storytelling if you can. Storytelling, it's so key. I have to tell you, I've been doing a lot of networking lately, and everybody's talking about storytelling. It's just a way to engage people and really pull them into what it is that you're trying to say. If you can tell a story, I mean, when we curled up on our parents' laps when we were 1, 2, 6, 8 now, and we listened to a story, we were so engaged that somebody wanted to tell us something, and we became transformed into that world for a brief moment rather than being hit with information out of a textbook. So I guess that's why storytelling is so important. And then make it very easy to take action. Have that call to action. So I thought I was going to come up today with a fictitious charity or nonprofit, come up with core key messaging for them, and try to work through it. That became a very daunting process when you're trying to create a charity or nonprofit from scratch, and I'm sure all of you know that. So what I decided to do was to take you through my own personal journey in trying to find that mission statement, that key message, and just really explain what it is that I do. So this is a great organization. Remember the 5 W's that everybody told us about at school? 5 W's: who, what, where, when, and why. Here is a good idea for you if you're starting out, or maybe you want to refine what it is that you're saying now. We got rid of the when, we inserted a how and an end goal. So if you just answer these questions, this is where you start off. If you answer these questions, you're away to the races. So who is it that you serve? What is it that you do for people in your community? Where is your work focused? So just feel free to, you list all these things down. Why? Our big why. That's the other thing that comes out. Why is it that we do what we do? What makes us so passionate in trying to explain what it is out there that we want to tell the world, on how we feel we can help? How do we deliver our messages? How do we deliver our programs and our services? And with the end goal, what is the end goal that you want to see happen? So if you go through and you fill out all of those, that's your core. And then you build out the messaging from there. So I want to tell you about my journey, because that way maybe I can explain. Like I said earlier, this is very much like a workshop. This is where you get your team together. This is where you're sitting around that table and you're all working on it together. So I hired a crack shot team of coaches to help take me into the corporate world. It's been very successful. They're amazing at what they do. Their credentials are just amazing. So after weeks of working through with them about what it was that I did, and a lot of sweat and tears and a lot of hand wringing, this is what they came up with for me. Just going to move my screen a little bit here. I will work with your team individually and as a group to refine their on-camera virtual presence and execute the competencies, metrics, and processes to build consistency across all meeting platforms. I will assist your team members to develop and improve their on-camera presence and client engagement, building an award-winning culture with the end goal of delivering captivating and magnetic client meetings to achieve the 25% top-line growth you are seeking. Now, I can barely say that. And I bet you didn't pick up too much about what it is that I do. I remember looking at this and I went, oh my goodness, this is so confusing. It's got big, beautiful words in it. But someone that her whole broadcast career spent keeping things simple and just explain the facts, maybe this wasn't the clearest idea about what it was that I did. So I took a crack at it and I came up with this. All right. I work with your team crafting their virtual look, delivery, and key messaging by leveraging my broadcast knowledge and experience as a journalist and producer. By sharing my television insider experience, I'm able to help people improve their performance, authenticity, and engagement with their clients and peers, creating company consistency across all virtual platforms. Now, that's really lovely too, but it's still too wordy. Do you see all these words that I've highlighted in yellow? That's where I could do better. That's where I thought maybe I might lose the resonance and the comprehension of what it was that I was trying to tell people. So finally, I looked at myself in the mirror and I went, can you just please tell it simply and just tell people what it is that you do? So I came up with this. I help people look and sound their best on camera. I develop media strategies that connect across all platforms, and I produce creative, engaging videos. Using my decades of experience as a producer, journalist, and anchor, I leverage my insider knowledge and my deep contacts within the media industry, helping my clients to succeed and stand out in the marketplace. Now, there's still a few big words in there. Not quite as simple as I would like, but I think it's a little bit simpler than where I started off in the beginning. I questioned the word platforms, but you know what? I think that's now in our vernacular. That's not really going to trip up too many people. Platforms are websites, our social media platforms, our YouTube channels. I think people get it. So I left platforms in because that one word serves so many masters. So I didn't have to list all those things because brevity, remember brevity. So we want to keep it brief. And, you know, when you think of the human attention span is less than a goldfish that you might have seen earlier, and a goldfish is 9 seconds. Hopefully my mission statement and that key messaging is going to resonate. So finally, before I leave this section on messaging, I want to talk to you about writing a breaking writer's block. Oh my goodness, I don't know whether this has ever happened to you, but I suffered so badly, still do to this day. Writer's block is when you're staring at that white screen and going, what the heck am I going to write? I remember when I was a news anchor and reporter, I'd go out to news conferences. There would be 5 or 6 people that would be at that podium. They'd all be talking. And then I'd go and take my microphone and I'd be out there. I'd be interviewing people. And I would come back with literally 2 hours of content. And then my producer would say, sounds good. Can you do a buck 30? A buck 30 is a minute 30. So that means I had to explain in 90 seconds what took them an hour in a news conference. And I had to make sense. And I had to make sure that I made all of their points. So I had to take everything and funnel it down. So I think this is where my first lessons in key messaging started so many years ago. So when I would get there and I would go and pick out all of my clips, then I'd be staring at that blank notepad going, what the heck am I going to write and where am I going to start? So what helped me was I gave myself permission just to write down any sort of stuff that came out. if I thought, no, you know how it's like, we're always looking for that perfect first line and all the rest, like we're writing our reports or we're writing our presentations. That first line's got to be a zinger. It's got to be hot out of the box. It's got to be amazing. And you know what? We can get so tripped up by that. So maybe you're not starting with that first line. Maybe you're just starting with the heart of the matter. I just gave myself permission to bash it down. And I'm going, this is garbage, but I'm still writing. It's okay. Once I finished, and fill up a page. Then if you're a creature of habit like me, print it. Like to have that copy in my hand, but if you're really good with computers, you can go through, you start highlighting. So you've either grabbed your highlighter or you're highlighting on your computer. Don't use the highlighter on the screen. Doesn't work. But you know, we're going through, we're highlighting all of the salient points of what it is that we want to express. And then take those points, move it on to another document, and then start writing from there. And then highlight there and take those points and move it over and start writing. And pretty soon you get that clarity that you're looking for, and you're going to nail what it is that you're going to do. Messaging, it's not for the faint of heart, but it can be done. So if you follow those helpful hints, follow those W's that I explained, that'll get you going. Maybe it's time to review your messaging, plug it in, see where you are, and really workshop that idea. Bring in your team, bring in your friends, bring in people that you trust. And pretty soon everybody's just sort of shooting ideas, and you'll come up with some really great messaging. And messaging is ever evolving. I'm sure you guys know that. As we grow and evolve, what we do, what we say, how we help the communities that we serve, all of those messages change. So I hope that was helpful. Now, I'd like to move on. Now that you've got your messaging all set, I'd like to talk to you about engaging with the media. This isn't for everyone, but it can certainly get you out there. It can build the credibility of who you are, what your group is, what your agency is, or maybe you're a survivor that perhaps would like to tell their story. Engaging with the media can be very wonderful. And I'm talking traditional media here, the legacy media of television, radio, and print. So I just want to give you some insider information. And the first thing that we've got to do is I'm going to share with you what each legacy media outlet looks like, what the power structure is, and if you're going to be going after them to support you and your messaging, and maybe just get it out to the world that, you know, you've got some stuff going on that you think might be really helpful. I want to tell you who the decision makers are and how to burst past some of the gatekeepers. So here we go. Television newsroom. This started when CNN actually was born. All of a sudden, we had these working newsrooms. So it's more or less the same model. If you're here in Toronto, you'll know that CP24, City TV, they all have working newsrooms. Some of the other ones like CTV, they have the anchor desk for their local casts, usually in other rooms. But if you watch the National, you'll see them at night. You'll see them. There's that staircase and all those people. It's not a still shot that they put up. Those people are actually working. So it's the big standard model in a newsroom is the pod system. So what happens is one pod is activated first thing in the morning, and all of the producers, the assignment editors are in first thing in the morning. They're going through what's going to make the news of the day. The assignment editor comes up with a plan, and then they're off to that morning meeting of the anchors, the reporters, the camera people. Everybody's in that meeting. They're all shooting ideas. The assignment editor says, this is what I got on the slate. This is what's interesting for today. And everybody decides right then and there what's going to make it to air. Then everybody, the reporters are assigned and off they go. So when you're coming in, here's the TV power structure. So of course, we've got the all of the executives up above. I won't bother them. But the hands-on people are executive producer. You've got a lot of producers, the assignment editor, anchor reporter, writers. All of these people have a say and a hand in what's going to go to air that night. The person you want to contact is the assignment editor. So when you call into either the main switchboard, or maybe through your media strategy, you've managed to get that assignment desk telephone number that rings straight through, you're asking for the assignment editor. Over to radio. Radio isn't as telegenic because they don't have to be. Although if you take a look now at 680 News, City News 680, or City News 660 if you're in Canada, across Canada, they all have their radio stations are also now producing video. So in the olden days, they were producing video as well when they were serving multiple masters. So serving the radio audience, and now we're going to do a live hit into the television audience of City TV. A lot of desks, a lot of computers, they've got TV screens scattered all the way around. That gray door at the back of the yellow wall there, that's where the radio control room is, and that's where they broadcast from. The power structure, the news director, they don't call themselves assignment editors in radio. They call themselves editors or lineup editors. Then you've got your news readers, your anchors, you've got reporters, and you've got writers. So when you call into the newsroom, you can usually talk to whoever answers the phone, or you can ask for the editor or the lineup editor who's putting the show together today. And so that's who you ask for. Okay, print, newspapers, holy cow. Anytime I walked into a newspaper newsroom, it was like, I couldn't believe how big it was. I couldn't believe how messy it was. There was newspapers everywhere, lots of computers, TVs, all that sort of stuff. Their power structure, a little bit different. So the news editor and the reporters are the ones that you're going to want to contact. Photo editors are also there. You can let them know, but they're not the ones you're going to phone. They don't want to hear from you. Writers don't want to hear from you. But news editors are the ones in the newspapers that do, and you can connect directly with reporters. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that here in a second. Magazines, more or less the same. They're going to look a little bit fancier, but just lots of desks and computers. A lot of people working from home now. If you turn to the second or third page in a magazine, you will find their power structure. You're going to find the editor-in-chief. You're going to find the assistant to the editor-in-chief. You're going to find their art director, their executive director. You do not want to contact any of those people. They don't want to hear from you unless you know them or somebody knows them in your organization. The people that you want to start with, so you don't upset them, are the features director and the 900 other editors that you may find on that second page. So you're looking at, you've got to focus in on where you fit within their power structure of their magazine. So you can find that person and you go, you know what, I think they've got community pages or something like that. You would find that editor to connect with. The biggest question that you can answer when going after the media is, how can I help? I always like when I'm in the small business market, or when I'm dealing in the corporate world, it's not about, I always tell them, it's not about your company, your product, or your service. It's about how you can help people. And in the area of charities and nonprofits, of which I also help, I tell them that sometimes it's really not what you think it might be when you're out there trying to get your message out there. And if you think that, you know, our marketing doesn't seem to be working because the media doesn't seem to be listening, I want you to know you're not alone. The media universe has changed a lot, especially since COVID hit. And I'm going to be going into that about what's been going on. It's very difficult to get media hits now, but not impossible. When I say a media hit, I mean a booking. So let's start out with the basics. You need a strong media hook, and that hook should be in the subject line. So when you're sending off your email, in the subject line, put the words story idea. Don't put pitch, put story idea, dash, and then a really great subject line of what it is that you want to tell people. So some of them, I was pulling some successful ones that I've done. Abuse hurts. In the subject line, abuse hurts. Our wonderful CEO and founder, Ellen Campbell, was contacted by the coroner's office, and there had been some abandoned babies that they were dealing with, and their hearts were broken because they were given paupers' graves. And Ellen said that she felt this was the earliest form of abuse, and that perhaps maybe she went to her board of directors and asked if we could do something. So her board was very gracious, and we started the Huggums Hope Memorial. And so the very first time we had some babies to be buried. I think we had 2. And we held a beautiful funeral with all of the first responders, white gloves, doves at the gravesite. Ellen always said, these babies' lives counted for something on their brief moments on this earth. So, difficult subject, but the media needed to know. So, story idea, abandoned babies to be buried with dignity. That headline is going to get you in either, it's got to impact, and it did grab the media because we had everybody there. We had CTV Toronto, CP24, City TV, CBC Toronto, Global TV, the Toronto Sun, and the Globe and Mail. That's who RSVP'd to me. The other heartbreak of this business is that sometimes world events or city events can take those cameras away. So we did have a big fire that day that it was a 4-alarm fire that took some of the media outlets. But once they finished up, they did come and do something. They may not have been there for the funeral, but they were able to come and do something. But we're talking about that media hook now. What is it that's going to make you stand out to that assignment editor, that decision maker? What is it that's going to make you stand out so that they go, oh, that's going in our file that's going to be going into the morning meeting? So the media hooks can be sometimes as tough as your key messaging, but once you get going and you start to get the feel of it, you will know what makes a good media hook. These assignment editors are getting 500 to 600 story ideas a day. You have to stand out and you have to stay away from that delete button. But I'm going to show you some other ways that we can get past the gatekeepers. And I want to tell you a little story. Sometimes it's not what we think it is. Remember, I tell my corporate clients, it's not your company, it's not your product, it's not your service, it's how you help people. So I was working a long time ago with a group of people that were they were putting together this amazing conference, and they were doing it in aid of the Angel Helper Network. Now, I've changed the name of the charity and the name of the director for privacy reasons. So we're going to call it today the Angel Helper Network. And they supplied caregivers to women who were going through cancer treatments, and for free. They were fundraising for this. So this lady, very passionate, she put together a conference. She was hoping to draw 1,000 people to this conference, and she had some amazing speakers. She had the late Bob Proctor. This was a long time ago. Bob Proctor has since passed away. God bless him. But she had him. She had John Maxwell. She had a whole bunch. Like, her lineup was just amazing. She's got us around her kitchen table. She's talking about this conference. And then she turned to me and she said, how do we get this out in the media? So I asked him some questions. I said, you know what? You've got an amazing conference here, but I'm wondering whether or not we shouldn't lead with a charity. And she said, well, it's the conference. It's Bob Proctor. It's John Maxwell. And I said, tell me about the charity. She said, well, the director, Marnie Wilson, was going through cancer treatment herself, and she ran a caregiver network. So she had caregivers that helped people with numerous tasks in their home. She had caregivers that looked after children. It was an agency. So she went to her cancer treatments, and she got to know the women that were in her room every day that she would go in for chemo. And she noticed one day that this one lady had disappeared. And then she noticed that she wasn't there on a regular basis. And she asked one of the nurses, where's so-and-so? She said she can't afford childcare, so she's not here. So she was missing her chemo treatment. So Marnie decided she was going to do something about it. And that's when the Angel Helper Network came into being. And now she fundraises, and she has created this wonderful network that provides free childcare for women that are going through cancer treatment, so they don't have to miss their chemo treatments. So I'm sitting here listening to this amazing story, and I said, you have to lead with the charity. So she said, oh no, but these speakers and everything. She was so determined. So I said, you know what? I said, I could go out there and we could do a big splash for you. I don't think it's going to I don't think it'll get anything, but we can try. And then she said, well, you know what? My son just graduated from college and he's a communications major. Can he give it a go? I said, go for it. So the press release went out, and it was, of course, I mixed up my papers. It was world-renowned speakers coming to Toronto. Master teacher Bob Proctor available for interviews now. And then they went through the press release and everything like that. We got zero. Nobody answered us back. Nobody. And I said to them, you know, these speakers are amazing. Your conference is amazing, but they're in town a lot. And it's just not resonating with the media. Can we please go after, we're going to make our focus the charity, the good works that they're doing. And I said, the media is gracious. They will ask them, we'll let them know about our event. And at the end of the interview, I'm sure they'll let Marnie say something. So we went out, the title, Media Hook, was Women Forced to Skip Cancer Treatments. The subtitle, the Helper Care Agency sends qualified caregivers to look after children. So I managed to get them the top morning show, national show. It was Canada AM way back then. It went right across coast to coast. Got Marnie on that, the Globe and Mail and the Toronto Star. And then after that, we were able to do some other media as well. And so sure enough, the media was very gracious. They talked to Marnie about what it was that she was doing. And yes, they're having an event on such and such a day. Here's our website, please buy tickets. So that's what happens when it's not really what you think it is. So how can you help? Oh yes, so I'm going to tell you, there's our titles. So that's the one that got us nothing. And then this is the media hook and the title on the press release that we sent out. You can also get into the news by advancing the story. So if you are watching the news, or anybody in your team is watching the news, and there is a story that you can maybe comment on, and we do this all the time at Abuse Hurts. If there's anything out there, anything to do with abuse, hurts, or abuse, we sometimes will send out a statement, or quite often they will just contact us and request someone. Our go-to person is always Ellen Campbell, our CEO and founder. So she's become very well known, and that's what you want for your agency. You want a spokesperson to be in that virtual Rolodex, where if there's a story that breaks on the news, that they can issue a statement, and then they may come to you to comment on it. That's going to get your agency's name out there, because it's Ellen Campbell, CEO and founder of Abuse Hurts. That's right on the screen. Or if she's doing a radio interview, joining me now, the CEO and founder of Abuse Hurts, Ellen Campbell. Ellen, thank you for joining us today. If you're in the newspaper, you're always qualified what agency you're from. So that's why it's really great that you follow the news and you see whether or not you might be able to help out people by advancing the story. And I'll tell you, the summit editor is always looking for people to advance the story. Sometimes they not every story will get advanced, but if it's a big one, they will. And the next day, how can we tell this story and give our viewers, our listeners, our readers, how can we give them more information to help them? How can we do that? So if you phone up and say, hi there, it's so-and-so from such and such an agency. We noticed yesterday that you ran a story on the news about such and such. Our director can speak to that. And this is that we've issued a statement. Can we send it to you? And more than likely they'll say yes. And then you're off to the races. So I want to talk to you about press releases. For those of you that may be new, or maybe you're writing press releases, just maybe a different look at them. Press releases aren't really needed in the solopreneur work. Sometimes in corporate they are. Charities and nonprofits, I think that a press release will still serve you well, but it is about the story pitch that I'm going to get into. So I call this the 5-2 formula. In your press release, try to make it one page. If you're going to have addition pages, make sure that one page stands on its own, because they've got a lot of information to go through. They're going to breeze through it really, really fast. So you want to make sure that everything's on page 1. And then if you've got additional stuff, you could put it on page 2 and 3. So the 5 W's, answer the who, what, where, when, and why, and you're going to get 2 quotes. Here's 2 examples of press releases on the elements of them. So you've got the title, you've got the subtitle. Then for media to release, you've got your date, your city and your province, where you're from. Do that opening paragraph, state what's going on. You're going to have a quote, more details, then a quote, and then underneath that, for more information, do your contact info. If you have an event, reporters often are covering 3 to 4 stories a day. So if they're going to come to your event, they got a sheaf of papers in their hands, or they've got their phone in their hands, which makes it even smaller space to catch everything. So you want to put indented in the middle of your press release, you want to put the event details, the time, the address, so that when they're scrolling fast and their cameraman's yelling at them from the driver's seat, where are we going to next? They'll be able to give them the address really fast. Okay, we got 30 minutes to get there. Here's the address, plugging into GPS, let's go. So you can serve them better if that is in there. So the art of the story pitch, this is where media relations are going now. It's not about the press release. The press release will likely not get you any media. You can attach your press release for extra information, but it's the story pitch. The story pitches are all done on the email. Remember I told you the media hook is in the subject line. You want it to be 3 or 4 paragraphs long. I had a producer at CP24 that I used to work with. Susan said, Teresa, if you haven't got me within the first 2-3 sentences, I'm gone. You're deleted. I'm sorry, I love you, but you're deleted. So that very first paragraph is key. So just, you know what? Here's the magic sauce. If I give you anything today about media, here's my magic sauce. You know how news anchors read an intro? And they'll say something to the effect of, oh gosh, what can I tell you? What would be a good intro? Well, you know how they introduce a story? Do it like that. Like you are the news anchor and you are introducing your story in that first paragraph. So abuse hurts is, if we went back to the abandoned babies, Abuse Hurts has been helping young souls get their stories out for years. We're talking about abandoned babies. Sometimes women who are in crisis are forced to make difficult decisions. And Abuse Hurts is there not to ask why, but to help. With more, here is the story. Now, that's a really bad intro, and I would have rewritten it about 9 times. But anyway, write that as your intro in the very first paragraph. Then you've got them. So subject line has made them read through. Now you've got them. Then a couple of more paragraphs. That first paragraph is key. Tell the story in a conversational manner. And then say, if you'd like to engage further, here's our contact information. And then you can attach the press release. A few years ago, any attachments they would not touch because of, they would open them up and they were filled with viruses and stuff. Sometimes there is something in their systems that will not allow you to send anything. The systems won't even let it get to the right people. So I always say embed it in underneath. So you can attach it, but the best is to embed a press release or any other information underneath that email. So your media battle plan, how do you find these people? It's a bit of a searching game. I always arm myself with the old school notebook and pen, because sometimes when you start talking to these newsrooms, they'll start giving you the key players and you got to write it down really fast. They're not going to wait for you to type. So go onto their website, scroll all the way down. You'll find an itsy bitsy little word called contact. Quite frankly, a lot of their information is hidden, but you can find them. I found a lot on Google. CTV Toronto newsroom telephone number. I checked last night. It's the main switchboard number, but at least it's a live person usually. And then you ask for their assignment desk. So on Google, you can find a lot of information. People you know, they may have info for you. Call and be curious, ask questions. Sometimes they're really busy. Don't be turned off if you're met with a gruff voice, and you build that media list. And you know what? Sometimes you get back, when you're calling in, sometimes they will send you back, you know what, we're interested. And I said, you know, if it's okay, I just want to make sure that my press release got to you. Can you just send me back an email that says, got it? Yeah, sure, no problem. They can type 2 words, got it. They send it back. Do you know what's in the bottom of that email? All of their contact information, their direct line, their email, everything. So you want to be building that media list. And there's been times when I've been in the middle of a media campaign and I've been going hard and going fast, going across Canada. And I've been on to CTV Winnipeg, or I've been talking to somebody in Vancouver and I forgot to write down somebody's name. And then I'm looking and I've got all these telephone numbers and I don't know who they are. So after each phone call, I make myself stop and I write all of the information so that I can transfer it onto my master media list that's on my computer. So the pitch and catch technique. When's the right time to send out a media release? If you just have a story, day one, you're going to send out your story pitch with your media release. Day two, you're going to follow up with that phone call, and you're going to call into that newsroom or that radio station or into the news operation magazine. You're going to call them up and you're going to introduce yourself. I'm from so-and-so. I'm just wondering whether or not you got our press release. The subject line is this. And they'll say, you know what? I didn't. And even where I've worked, I've called into the city TV news desk before. I used to work with these people. Teresa, I never saw anything from you. I said, you know what? While I've got you on the line, I'm going to send it to you now. Did you get that? While I'm on the line, I'm going to send it to you now. Do I have the correct email address? I've got blah, 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 blah. And sometimes they'll be intrigued enough and they'll say, no, try this one. Because now they've got, try this, sometimes like CP24 is breaking news at cp24.com or something like that. They'll say, you know what, send it to me directly. Here's my email. Oh, writing that one down. So you talk to them, and then this is where you've got this gotcha, where can you just say, I got it, so I know you got it. So they go, yeah, no problem, got it, bang. So now I've got more information for my next campaign. So you send that story pitch again, you monitor your emails on day 3, and day 4, you follow up by the phone again. At that point, they're going to say, you know, right now, it's just not a good fit for us. I always tell everybody, it's not no, it's just not right now. So you always are very pleasant, of course, we all are. And you just say, you know what, I really understand, we'll be in touch soon. Thank you so much for your time. If it's not a good fit, that's where you have to just say, I understand, you move on to the next one. Events are different. You're going to follow that pitch and catch technique, but a lot of events happen on the weekends. They happen at night. There are shift changes. Can't tell you the amount of times that I've called in. Yeah, Teresa, you're on the list. You're one of our considerations. Won't know whether or not we can get a camera there, or won't know whether or not I can get her onto that radio show. We're not going to know until the day of. So we'll let you know. They're not going to let you know. You call in, like, let's say your event's in the evening. There's always a shift change around 3 or 4 o'clock. So you're going to phone in, and there'll be another person answering that phone and say, hey, I was talking to Bob earlier, and you know, it's Teresa from Abuse Hurts. Talking to Bob earlier, and just want to let you know we've got an event coming up this evening. Do you have it on your list of things that you might be coming out to cover? And they'll say, yeah, I see you there. And I've been told before, after you know, getting them along for a week, no, I don't see you. What? Can I quickly send you the email? Yes. You know what? Send it to my personal email. Yes, making note of that one. So they send it. So I send it again, and then I've actually pulled media responses out of the fire of not coming because I made that phone call. So you follow the pitch and catch technique for 4 days. You follow up the morning of the event, and then call in the afternoon or early evening, and then catch. Crisis communications. This involves an entire session on its own. But I want to tell you, please promise me, don't ever say no comment. Nothing can upset the media more than the words no comment. I think everybody's more or less figured that out right now, but it's the art of saying something, acknowledging something, but not saying anything. So I think you all know what I mean. But, you know, sometimes the media is just looking to know that the stakeholder, that person that maybe is in a little hot water, is actually engaged in doing something about it. So take some time to get your ducks in a row if something's happened. Position a spokesperson. You probably already have one. And with the messaging, it could be something as simple as, We are aware of this situation. We have assembled our team. We are looking into this. And this is something that we are taking very seriously. And we hope to have more information for you in the hours or days to come. They'll hit you with more questions. Yes, it's been a tough day. But I want you to know that we have been working on this issue for many hours now. I have taken the time to talk to you all right now. I want you to know that we are taking this under very serious consideration, and we are formulating a response, and we will be back to you shortly. They'll hit you again with more questions. The ones that are amazing are the ones that are in first responders in the police departments. If you've ever watched them on scene, they are very informative. Their voices are in a low timbre. They look serious. They are very real. They are very authentic, and they are answering the questions, but really not saying too much. The investigation is ongoing. We hope to have more for you in the coming hours or in the coming days. So just a few things about crisis communications. Always say something. Always acknowledge the media. Just tell them that you're working on it and try to give them a timeline. Okay, so there's a couple of different ways that you're going to be interviewed. So you could be interviewed in person. So you could be brought into the studio. You could be doing a double-ender, which is what CNN made famous. So, and has, since COVID hit, all of us have been doing them on Zoom. So that's the virtual interviews that are being done from our home. And this poor lady, oh my goodness, hasn't this been us? I'll tell you, mass chaos going behind you, but if you can lock the kids and the dogs up and get the husband off to work, and you can actually block off the chaos around you, she looks amazing. She's got a nice jacket on, may not be dressed very well on the bottom, but she's got a nice jacket on, and she's doing her virtual interview. So that's where you look into the camera and you do the interview as if you were there in person. Radio and print interviews, you're either brought into the station or they're done by telephone. Please, no speakerphones. Speakerphones are awful. They make you sound echoey. If you are a leader, if you are a director, if you're a CEO, you don't want to sound far away and echoey and important. You want to be real. You want to be authentic. You want to be engaging. That's the whole word out there right now in the media, authenticity. Just be real. Take a look at the way that news anchors are presenting themselves now. Do you remember that the hair used to be perfectly coiffed and hair sprayed to the nth degree? And they would be really, really still, and they would be delivering the news in a tone, and they would be staring at the camera, and they would never, ever lose eye contact with you. And that's the end of the story. Well, now they're more authentic. They're more engaging. So there's a little bit more body movement. There's some eye movement, and they're trying to talk like real people. So no speakerphones. Get a really good cell phone or a landline. Landlines are the best because they're not going to be singing dings and notifications in your ears. So if you're still running with a landline, that's the best. Then a cell phone, but make sure it's up to your ear and your mouth. I want to talk about something that's very personal to me and my family. And I want to talk to any survivors that may be with us today. I want to talk to you about telling your story. This is my late brother-in-law, Martin Kruze. He came forward with a story of the horrible sex abuse scandal that happened at Maple Leaf Gardens in the 90s. This story, when it broke, made international headlines. When Oprah was on regular television, Martin went on Oprah. My sister-in-law was traveling for business, and she was in Paris, and she opened up the newspaper, and Martin's story was there. Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto was a hockey shrine, and the fact that a pedophile ring had operated within its walls for years, and no one was admitting it. Martin kept hammering on their door saying, this is still going on. The people that are still working there are still luring young children in. You have to do something. So finally, he couldn't stand it anymore, and he went forward with his story. It was a media explosion. I talked to him the night after he went. He had news crews standing on his front porch. He had news crews that had found his mom. They were standing on her front porch. His parents were divorced. They had news crews standing at his dad's house. The media will find you, even if you don't give them your home address. So they have ways. So Martin spoke. He wanted to break the silence. He wanted to get his story out there, and he wanted to help other people. He wanted to get this subject matter that people weren't talking about. He wanted to get it out there so that parents could arm their children and better prepare them, because his parents, Martin and was a hockey player. And he's my brother-in-law, so I'm married to his brother, Gary. And Gary, his older brother, who was 6 years older, hockey player. So his dad did the draperies for all of Maple Leaf Gardens, and he worked for Harold Ballard. And Harold Ballard hired him for other businesses in his home to do the draperies. So Harold says to Mr. Kruze one day, do you have any sons that are interested in hockey? He says, well, the oldest one's into basketball, Ron, and I've got 2 that are crazy about hockey. He says, let them come on down. And I'll never forget when Martin's story came out, I'll never forget both his mom and his dad saying to us, and they were in shock, and they were shaking their heads, and they said, we always said, we know our sons are safe because they're at a hockey game tonight. They're not in a mall or out on a street getting into trouble. They're going to watch a hockey game and then they're coming home. This is back in the 70s, the 80s. They had no idea what was going on. So I'd just like to say, this took a tremendous toll on Martin. For 8 months, he told his story, but he got so tired. And so I just want to say, if you're a survivor and you feel that you might like to tell your story, no matter what's happened to you, we talked about storytelling. People they want to learn more. And maybe you feel that your story can help others. Please be careful. I need you to talk to the people that you trust. They have to guide you. I want you to prepare your family, if at all possible. Above all, look after yourself. The media is going to be very respectful to you, but sometimes telling a story can take a toll on you. I need you to be prepared for the consequences of telling your story in the media. It can trigger you, and it triggered Martin. I want you to know that we all can't save the world. We can make a difference. We can make an impact, but only if your heart and your life is truly taken care of. So please be careful, get that guidance. And if you're strong enough, please share your story. But I just needed you to know a little bit about Martin's story and the toll that it took on him. We're incredibly proud of him and the work that he did. So please just look after yourself. So if you are a director and you're going on and you've got a media hit, what are you going to say? Well, we go back to that key messaging. I need you to be clear. I need you to practice your answers, but don't memorize them. You know what? You need to trust the interviewer. Just answer the questions. Please don't sit in front of your computer and write down every thought that you've ever had in the world about your agency or what it is that you do. Don't write them down. Keywords only. Just like if you're going to be giving a speech, keywords only. Be real and authentic. If you're going to be giving any tips for preparing your family or whatever, work in odd numbers. 3's ideal, 5's almost too much, 7 is forget. But top 3 ways, that's a good media hook. Top 3 ways to do something. Top 3 things to be aware of. Media love lists. A couple of other things. If you get a morning show, let's look at that. You've got 3 to 4 minutes. So at the beginning and the end, be short and brief. If someone's welcomed you on and now joining us is so-and-so from such and such an agency. Welcome today. I'd like to ask you about what's been going on in this. That's a direct question to you. You don't want to stop them and say, well, first of all, I'd just like to say thank you so much for inviting me onto your show today so that we can talk about this very important issue. You don't want to do that. You've just wasted 10 to 15 seconds of your very, very precious time. So what you want to do is you just want to launch right into that question. They already know your name. They already know where you're from, so you don't need to do that qualifier, and you certainly don't need to thank them. Trust the interviewer. They're going to lead you through this. Never use their name. I once had somebody that was on a morning show. This guy worked on CBC. He's been on for, or sorry, this one was CHCH. He's been on forever, like 30 years. And I think his name is Bob and whatever. My wonderful person that I put on the air kept calling him Jeff or something, and he let him do it 3 times, and then finally says, my name is Bob. So right on the air too. So it's kind of disconcerting when we are trying to be on the air and hold ourselves together. So never ever use their name. You don't need to. Never correct them if they get the facts wrong. So we hear that 90% of people will be abused in their lifetime. This is how you answer. Don't correct them, but you would say, it's staggering the amount of abuse that is going on in our area now. We're finding that 1 in X amount of girls are, 1 in X amount of boys are, and that's where you gently lead them down the road to the correct information. How are they going to find you? Never give telephone numbers on the air, only your website. A couple of quick things. Do you know how to calm a cough? And I'm going to be rolling quickly because we're into our Q&A session. This will help you just before you go on the air. I used to take a Hall's lozenge. They're not my sponsor, but Hall's always worked for me. I would work that cough candy over to about half, and then I would stick it up into the corner of in between my cheek and my gum. And I did an entire hour-long sportscast one time that was filled with highlights and lots of names that were really difficult to pronounce. I did that for 1 full hour after hacking up a lung, not only 30 minutes before I went to air because I was getting over laryngitis. What this does is that the motion of your cheeks when you're on the air will keep that cough lozenge locked up there, and the heat of your body will let it slowly trickle down your throat, so it will calm that irritating cough. Conquering a sneeze. You can't do this when you're on the air, but if you're in the wings about to go on a stage, or you're in a green room or something like that, and you just can't sneeze, if you take your pointer finger and you rub briskly on the top of your nose, that will stop a sneeze, honest to gosh. Stopping anxiety. I wrote a book on entrepreneurship. It was based on a national newspaper column. And I was going, these are great stories, put them in a book. I thought it'd be so easy, 6 months done. Well, 2 years later, finally got that book done and did my media. So of course I never do things easy. And I booked myself on the top morning show, which at the time was Canada AM, coast to coast. CTV, Bell Media owns TSN. So everybody was looking to see what Teresa was doing after her sports career. So I had a lot of eyeballs on me, all my family, my mom, my husband. And I'm like, oh my gosh, all these years of working in television. And I got so nervous in the green room. Oh man, I was so nervous. So I went, all right, you got to pull this together. You need to pull yourself together. And I don't know how I had the presence to do this, but I did this. I share it with my clients and it's worked a lot. So if you're about to go on stage, or if you're about to do some media, or you're about to give a presentation in front of a room and the nerves are starting to get the best of you, here's what you do. Close your eyes and you take in a huge breath and then you exhale it through your lips. So you don't want to make a show out of yourself, go like a deflating balloon, but you just do a little yoga breath. So it's like, you get all that air out till there's nothing left in the tank. While those eyes are still closed, you say, no one knows more about what I'm about to talk about today than me. This is my charity. This is my nonprofit. This is my story. I've put this presentation together. I know what I'm doing. This is my stuff. So I am going to go out there and I am going to be just fine because I know what I'm talking about. And I give my brain permission to work really well. And everything's going to be just fine. And then you open your eyes. Do you know what you just did? You dropped your diaphragm, you opened up the chest cavity, and air, when we speak, is a very good thing. So lots of oxygen. You've centered your core, which is very important. And you validated in your mind that you're going to be just fine. And I'll tell you, I put this one lady on from an animal rescue in Mexico, and she came up to Toronto. I love the work that she's doing. In fact, I love it so much. I came home with a puppy, and Daisy's now 5, and she's living the life of Riley up here in Canada. But anyway, I said, Allison, we've got to get your story out of what you've done. You single-handedly controlled the animal population. Well, doesn't CP24 say, we love Allison and her dog, and can Daisy come on too? So I got them on, and so they're on the show. And Allison, she was really nervous, and I gave her that technique, and I coached her, and she got on CP24, and well, she's just sitting on there like she has just done this all of her life. She's telegenic, she's engaging, she's got the host laughing, the dogs are even calm. That interview just went amazing. We're coming down the hallway afterwards. I said, Allison, you were amazing. She goes, thank you. And I could see the toll it took on her. And I said, but you were like, I said, you've been holding out on me. You've done this before. And she said, tell you the truth, Teresa, I've never done that before. I just did what you told me to do, and I did it. So it does help. So I hope that you've got some good info as you begin your day and your journey here on the LEAD conference. I hope that this has helped. And I'm just, it's been my joy to share with you what I've been doing with Abuse Hurts for over 25 years now, and working with amazing people like Ellen Campbell and, of course, Helena Kamika. Hi, Helena.
Hi. Wow. Thank you, Teresa, for that amazing and informative. I feel like I've just been through a masterclass, honestly, and you made me cry. You made me cry. I think I'm keeping an eye on the Q&A here to see if someone has questions, but I think sometimes we forget, we're so engrossed and involved in our work, and we forget how important it is to get it out there, right? Where sometimes can be in a vacuum. And learning to communicate it is super important. You really made that point clear, because like I said, we're so engrossed, we're so involved, and we can speak about it, but we have to come at it from the perspective of the person we're talking to, right? We're invested, we're passionate, we've been doing this for years, and now we want to engage someone who's never heard of it before. And how do we get them to get as passionate, as engaged and involved as we are, right? And so sometimes just getting to the point is not the way, because they don't have that backstory that we have, right? So many helpful tips. I'm blown away. Obviously, I wanted to thank you too, because you've really been a huge help to us in this respect. So I can vouch for how effective this is engaging the community.
I'm so pleased. You brought up some really good points there. I mean, how many times did I write clear, concise, and focused and simple, right? It's just true. You're right. We get wrapped up in what it was and what it is that we do and what we're so passionate about. And that's why I thought, you know what, don't create the fictitious charity and their core messaging and all the rest. Why don't you just tell them about your journey? And I think you saw, like, when I put those 3 examples up of how I worked over my message of what we thought and what those corporate coaches thought was just so crystal clear to their audience, I really felt needed to be simplified. So that's why it's our, what it is and we're passionate about, what we do. It's these evolving process. I think I have rewritten what I do 900 times. In fact, that last statement I wrote 2 weeks ago. So because I thought, geez, it's still not simple enough. So you're right. We can be so engaged in what it is that we do that sometimes just being really simple is the easiest way.
It's true.
Workshops way. Yeah.
And the reason why anyone here who is on the conference today does what we do is there's a purpose to it, right? We're not just doing it for ourselves. We're doing it for the community. We're doing it for the stakeholders or whoever's involved in whatever information or activity that we're involved in. I mean, it's for them. So it's very important to learn. I think this is a really important especially for grassroots agencies that don't have a huge marketing budget, right? Like it's really important for us to know this. because we're not experienced. We don't have marketing departments who know all this knowledge. So it's very helpful to have people like you guiding us and directing us and helping us hone that aspect. That's not our area of expertise, right? So we're really engaged in preventing intimate partner violence. I'm not a media expert. So again, super helpful. Another thing, I made some notes. I was listening to you. I like the no comment part, because as strong as that is, I find that you're right. If it slams doors, right? We want to have an ongoing relationship with media, I guess, media outlets. And so I when you were speaking to that, I thought, oh, it's very important to keep them engaged and know that we're a reliable source of information, so that they come to us. Where we've had, when things happen in the news and you've helped Ellen get on the media about a topic, and then when something happens again, they call, they know that here's a valuable source of information in this field. I've spoken to these people, they know what they're talking about, and so they engage, right? I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, thanks for bringing up that no comment. They hate that. They will just dig harder, and then they won't be as nice or as helpful to you as you want them to be. So yeah, no comments, never the good way to go. So yeah, just always say something, just say you're working on it. That's all the media wants.
Amazing. Well, thanks, Teresa. We're out of time now, and we're going to have a short break with sessions starting again in 15 minutes. So to navigate your session, please click the sessions button and then click on the session you would like to attend. Thanks again, Teresa.
My pleasure.